Welcome back to the Garcia Diaries Unfiltered. I'm your host, Bethany Garcia, and I'm sitting here with my husband and co-host, Anthony.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day. Good day today. All right. So, Bethany put something out there
Yes.
because we want to have more guests. Gets kind of boring just talking to you because we talk to each other
So rude.
365 days a year. Then we come on here and we talk some more. So
To be clear, I've never been bored talking to you, but okay, keep going.
but you put out there, all right, who would you guys like to see on the pod? Guess, shoot your shot. And you said number one was this person, right?
Yes. Over and over again, people wanted this guest.
So today we have my very own mother.
Hi.
Melissa. What's your name? It always changes on
My
Facebook.
name?
So
right now it's Melissa Martinez Strauss.
Melissa
Perfect. Right now.
Martinez Strauss. And she is here because for years, Bethany's gone on her platform, just shitted on her name.
What the heck are you talking
and
about?
said nonsense. So
Lies.
you are here to clear that up
No.
and speak from your end. But no, honestly, just here to clear your side of things, obviously, because, you know, we have a lot of funny stories, moments that we've shared about.
Yeah.
And you never hear the other side. You only hear one side, so you're here. But also, who are you? Where do you come from? Things of that nature. So I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah.
Um,
I love, and we also love always like sharing different perspectives on things, and because it's only our perspective that's ever been shared, I think Sharon, that's not even a word, shared.
I know a lady named Sharon.
I know. So I feel like that's the number one reason I wanted to have you as a guest. And number two, you have such a crazy life story, and you're not even old yet. So I feel like putting that out there and sharing everything you've gone through and how you got to where you are now is such a cool story. So welcome to the pod, Melissa.
So take us back before kids. Take us back there. Before you had kids growing up, what was that like?
Paint us a picture of your childhood.
Okay. Well, thanks first of all for having me on here. I'm kind of nervous. Never done anything like this, so I just always see, them doing their thing, and just thank you guys for having me on here.
Yeah.
So let's see. Story of my life. So I'm first generation Mexican American, here in America. Came up. My mom, came over here, married my father, and had us kids here, born in Tucson, and
Bear down.
What?
Bear down.
Bear down. Okay, yeah. So I'm from Tucson, but grew up here in Tempe. But just coming over here as a child, my first recollection, my first memories aren't that great. I mean, when you're little, you don't remember things, but just as a kid, from I remember, like from 5 years on up, went through some traumatic, experiences with my mother and my father at that time. So I kind of, my first memories of my dad were, he was my hero. I loved him. He was very loving, caring, loved us. But then there was this other part of him, where he was just crazy, hurting my mom, stalking her. And those are my vivid memories as a kid. And I know that really shaped and molded who I became later on in life, just because of that trauma and, me being scared. And just, I kind of felt like I was always trying to find my place, who I was, where I was going to be accepted, what kind of things, I was going to be about. And that shaped my life, growing up. So,
Yeah.
So you're born in Tucson. You guys moved to Tempe.
we first moved to Phoenix.
Okay,
Yeah.
Phoenix area,
for a little
Tempe.
bit.
If you're not from Arizona, Tempe is just like a small suburb of Phoenix,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you move here. Obviously, my Nana's her mom. How was that? Was she? You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest out of 5.
I'm the oldest. Bethany's the oldest.
Yes.
So, did you Did you have a big responsibility as far as like taking care of the family?
Yes.
Was Nana working? Was she able to be present a lot? How was that?
Yeah. So I don't know how deep you want me to get into this, but
Deep. You can get deep.
so pretty much what happened when I was 5, my mom was tired of my dad leaving, because he would leave for days at a time. Wouldn't come home. She was, a Mexican woman, didn't know no English at all. So, and she's beautiful. I mean, gorgeous woman. And she was basically his trophy wife. So he has kids with her, but at the same time was still doing his thing, I'm sure, without even saying what he was doing when you don't show up, at home. So once she was tired of it, he went crazy. He's like, if I can't have you, nobody can. So then he started stalking her. I remember being at the bus stop, just was abusive emotionally, financially, everything. So I remember seeing that as a kid, him coming, to the bus stop, yanking her purse, beating her up, and the ultimate. So basically, and this was back in the 80s when there was no laws against that, domestic violence, against women, and a lot of women had to, die for that. But it was the ultimate. He almost killed her. He stabbed her 26 times in the chest with a pair of scissors. So that was the ultimate. And I was 5 years old. I didn't see it, but I saw the before and the aftermath. So in that, right after that happened, my dad went to prison. Not for that long. I don't even remember what he got charged with. I've never looked for it, but I probably should just so I can get the history on that. My mom refused to go back to Mexico. Her family was like, "Come back. What are you doing with the kids?" She had 3 kids at the time, and my mom was like, "Nope, I'm not going back." And so she went to school. She put herself through English school, got a job, started working. So in that, my mom became a single mother. And as I started growing up, I had to take care of my siblings.
Yeah.
So I never was able, to have any summers, was never able to do any extracurricular activities, anything. So it was just, I was a young kid, first, second, third, taking care of. My mom had 2 other children. I took care of them, especially in the summers during breaks and stuff, because my mom couldn't afford that. So that's, the role that I played in that part.
Yeah, so Brooklyn's 10 years old, and I don't think I would ever trust her to babysit the kids. Maybe Harlem even, but, not Brooklyn. She's just in one ear, out the other, in her own little world, which is why we love her. But tell us, what was your personality and your responsibilities when you were 10 years old?
When I was 10 years old, so that was 5th grade. So at that point, I remember I would run every day from home. Run, we lived probably about a mile away from the school. Run because I wanted to hurry up and clean the house. Just wanted to make sure that it was cleaned. I believe my siblings were there. Maybe they ran with me. I don't remember that part. I don't know.
You're running away from
I'm sure that I was probably because I just wanted to clean the house so I could watch my cartoons or whatever shows were on. And so that way it was kind of like a goal for myself. Okay, this day I'm going to run this faster and then just clean and then, make whatever. I mean, I didn't know how to cook. So it was just ramen, frozen pizza, frozen microwaves, and then that was it. I mean, and, feed the kids until my mom got home.
Yeah. What time would she get home every day?
Probably 5. I would assume after 5. But it wasn't like maybe she did tell me to do it. But I don't remember her being like, you better do this, being abusive. She was just always at work. She was always working. So I just remember, me having to take care of the house, make sure that the kids were, we fought a lot. But, me and my sister. But as far as that caregiving.
So, obviously, you're younger, 9, 10. You kind of just do what you're told.
Yeah.
You're not really, with Brooklyn, she's not really too curious to the outside world beyond what is put in front of her. So with having gone through everything that you went through as a kid, seeing how your dad was toward your mom, I know for me, I met your dad one time. Yeah. And so we didn't grow up with him. It was all just secondhand. How did that affect you internally? Because I know I've come on here and talked about, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, you and dad would be just beating the crap out of each other. Yeah. And I remember telling myself, okay, my kids will never wake up to that sound.
Yeah.
So did you have that in you, or was it you just kind of took it on the chin and then move forward?
Well, one thing for sure, after seeing that, I remember thinking as a kid, I was never, ever going to let a man hit me. I remember, as a kid, I thinking, I'm never going to let a man hit me, control me. I'm never going to depend on a man, because I saw even as a little kid, who thinks like that as a little 5th grader? I'm never going to get married. I never wanted to get married, just because it scarred me so bad that I was just I'm never going to let that happen to me. So I was I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to do these things. So it kind of brought these walls, in my life where I was just very reserved, very kind of started having this anger, where even as a kid, when I look back, because there was a time where I became a bully in school. But was it because I really was a mean person? I don't think so. I think it was just more of the power. like having power over somebody, or like, oh, if I make them scared of me, then I have that little power right
Yeah.
there.
Over
Or
them,
Then
right.
they can't
there's
do
a
it to
little
me.
there's a little third grader that comes in, so and so's messing with me, and I wasn't the skinniest kid. I mean, I was big. I mean, if you look at me, I was big, so I wasn't like, I was just like wanting to fight, not for no reason or because, oh, I don't like them. It was just this little power trip that I had that carried on into my life.
So moving on from childhood to early teenagers.
Well, I have a
Oh,
question
you
about that
okay?
too. I was gonna ask, what was your first introduction to like drugs and alcohol? Was it as a child, or was it something like at school that you started hanging out with people and you wanted to like experience that?
This is where I'm gonna bring the Garcia side. If you don't know, but
Okay, no,
so
because that's a great question. So
it-
we'll go to my question first.
yeah.
Rate your childhood. So thinking back, how would you describe your childhood? Because your childhood's different from mine.
Yeah.
Bethany, your grandkids, our kids, it's gonna be much different.
Yeah.
What word would you use to describe up to 10, 11 years old?
My childhood.
Peaceful, loving. What would you use?
I would say it was tense and loving because
Okay.
my mom was loving. Like my mom. I look back and she did the best that she could. She still was, when she did have the time, was loving, caring, provided for us as much as she could. Did we have everything? No, we had nothing.
Right.
I mean, we were 5 kids sleeping in one room, but Christmases, birthdays, she still tried. Did I ever have a birthday party? No, I never had a birthday party, but did I have a cake? Yes. Did she
Okay.
acknowledge that? Things like that. She tried her best, loving in that area. But then again, there was this other side, like where I would just say tense, just because it's like I I didn't fit in, like I would be at school and all these kids were, doing these things and their parents would show up to everything and, they had their dads, but then I didn't, so it was just kind of like I was stuck in this, but then yet we would drive, in our car to go to, the church when we did go to church and, I'd be, ducking down because I was embarrassed of my car, I was embarrassed. And then too, my mom was like, she would walk around in mini skirts and high heels because she's a beautiful woman, and then I would be embarrassed of her because can't you just be like a normal mom and, just dress normal? It was just like, I had this identity crisis where I was like, I looked at my mom, look at her family. We would go to Mexico. They were poor and, we were way much better off than them. But then I'd be here in the United States.
You were bottom of the.
But then we were
yeah.
bottom, and we did not live in the projects. I'm sure my mom didn't even know about that, but we would have qualified.
So would it be safe to say at a young age, you could tell within that there was a void. There was something.
For sure.
Okay.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
I'm a
for
big
sure.
believer in
Yes.
what you come up and that's your foundation.
Yes,
And
yeah.
so I think everything plays hand in hand. So
Yeah.
your needs were met, but you always knew that there was something missing.
For sure.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yeah.
now back to Bethany.
Yeah.
You get a little older. Before we move on, how old were you? How old was your mom when you were born?
She was 20.
20, and she had a
Yeah.
kid prior to you though,
Yes,
that passed away.
at
How old was
9
she?
months.
How was
So
Nana when she had her
I think
first
she
kid?
was 18, so
Okay.
she was 2 years
So your
older than
mom
me.
was an adult when she had her first kid.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
she
now
was already 18.
you get into teenage years and you start to go wild. I'm just gonna say.
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah. It
listen.
was-
One thing about us is, well, not us. You never hid things. You never sugarcoated. You kind of sometimes too much.
Yeah. Opened
So
up,
I
yeah.
know a lot of this, and so
Yeah.
you hit junior high,
I hit
high
junior
school
high.
years. Take us there. How
Well,
was
I
that?
remember seeing this picture. We were going through pictures one time, and you were like, "Oh, this is me when I was 12," and I was like, "You're lying."
You
and
look
you're like,
grown.
"No, I was."
Yeah.
She looked
was
like she
12.
was 24, like
Yeah,
the most
yeah.
beautiful but like developed woman at age 12, and I was
At
like,
age 12, yeah.
"What?" But yeah, so go on.
Yeah, so it was definitely when I went to junior high is when everything switched, and flipped for me. 6th grade, coming into 6th grade, it was just normal. I was a normal kid, and I got good grades in school despite of everything that was going. Like, I was always a good student. I liked school. Then all of a sudden, well, I became best friends with your aunt, which is Anthony's aunt, Becky.
From
in the
my
5th
biological
grade.
dad's
My
aunt.
biological dad. Yeah, she became my friend in the 5th grade. So we kind of. And I just remember, I'll just bring this why I'm bringing up the story. But I remember she would go home in elementary. Nobody ever goes home in elementary. She would always go home for lunch, and she never came back. She never got in trouble. her parents never said anything to me. I was like, what? Like,
Yeah.
how can you do this? And I just thought, like, okay, well, what's going on here? So I didn't really get to go to her house until junior high, right? We're older. So I just remember I just, became more friends with her. And her parents were older, which were Anthony's grandparents. And, they had older children. She was the youngest. She became my best friend. So I started hanging out with her. And it was like her parents were just older. And, she was the youngest. And she was allowed to do all kinds of things. Not that my mom was super strict, but it was just I had this reverence toward my mom, like just respectful. Like, of course, when I don't know when I started cussing, but I would never do that in front of her just because I didn't want to break her heart. I never, even when I started doing all that stuff, drugs and all that, I never did it in front of her because I didn't want her to be disappointed in me or be hurt.
Yeah.
So everything I did was in the background. But in the 6th grade, she had an older brother, and they lived in this not so nice area of town, and just a bunch of people, just a bunch of older people, and they were just a bunch of gangsters. And it was just like I just got captivated like this. Like it was literally like a drug where it was just like, wow, it was just this total different lifestyle, right? I'm this Mexican American girl that, didn't fit in anywhere, but then yet I'm here with these older people. They're all over 18. They bought alcohol, bought drugs. Nobody ever forced me because, right, she never did that stuff. I mean, she kind of did it, but she would say no. But it was just like everything was readily available. And I was like, okay, well, I'm down. Let me just try some just because I could. And then it just sucked me in, just started with simple just getting high. And then it was just drinking. And then it just kind of led to, and I was 12 years old. By the end, 6th grade, I came in innocent, normal. By the end of 12th grade, that was it. It was just, I was this total different person.
By the end of 6th grade?
By the end of 6th grade at 12 years old.
So, Bethany and I talked about this before. Is this when you found out that your sexiest accent is what it is? Is this at that point in your life?
Yes.
Let the people know. So
yeah.
So
we're like, what accent turns you on the most? And she's like, Cholo.
So what if a man whispered in your ear, how you're gonna pick the sexiest voice, gonna make you get goosebumps? How's it gonna sound?
You want me to say
it? Just exactly how you said it.
No, I don't even remember. You guys
you do it. You do it.
I don't even remember what I said.
Hey, what's up, Bessa? My mother.
What game were we playing when that came up?
What was that best friends game or something? I don't know.
So you still double down on the Cholo. The Cholo sound is top of the list for you.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Over Italian, right?
Yeah,
babe. Don't question it. Look at her.
Okay, just so that way you guys know we weren't lying about that. That is truthful.
So did you guys bring that up? Or
yeah, because we did like a weekend recap, and we were like, hey. Okay, so now.
Well, I have a question. So, how you met Anthony's dad when you were 12 years old?
Well, yeah.
So, how old was he?
He was 19. He's 7 years older than me.
So 19. So 12.
But he was with, his siblings' mom at that time.
Okay,
He was just my best friend's brother. Like, we would go to their house.
Did he have kids at that point yet?
Yeah.
When you met? Okay.
He had.
So walk us through that. You're best friends with my Thea first. You're hanging around my dad, who's a grown ass man with kids and all that. Yes. How does that work? Like, how do you even walk us through that? Because obviously today it would be a no-go. It would be instant police jail, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. It doesn't work out today. But back then, how do you go from best friend to the sister to where that's your.
And I think, to put that out, I think it does happen right now. It just depends on what lifestyle you're living in, right? Yeah. Like ours, the way we are, no. But in that, right, that time, it happens. It's always happened. It was just not to say that it was natural or it just kind of, stuff happened between them. I never looked at him that way. I was already 4, so this is fast forward, right? 12, 13, 14, still partied over there. It was 14. I had actually just turned 14 and just things that's why I always say, like, be careful when you do drugs and alcohol because you'll do things that you never think that you'll ever do. Yeah. And that's a true statement. Time and time again that happened in my life. It just basically things led to another. I don't want to say anything, disrespectful, but things happened out of my control and just that's boom. It just kind of just one day to another. And it was just like, wasn't nothing that I ever planned, never looked at him like that. It was just, and he was just kind of, and he was older. Now that I look back at it, it was not that he groomed me, but in a
Oh, it was
sense,
predatory
it was
behavior.
very,
We'll say
very
that.
predatory. It was just, but at the same time, in my mind, I was that age, but I really wasn't, because I was just living that fast life, just doing whatever I wanted, just, and living this, I would say, double life, because, I would go home on the weekends. Like everybody else still lived that life, but then yet I still had to go home, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm underage, and, there's a lot of stuff that happened in between there too. Without, we'd have to be here all day.
Did you ever date him, or
No,
like, so you
no.
just like got pregnant
It
one day?
was just not, well, it was just pretty much, just right. This for adults, right?
This is, yeah.
Are my
it's-
grandkids gonna
no,
listen
no,
to this
no, no,
someday?
no.
I mean,
Oh,
20
I mean,
years
I'll
they
probably
will.
tell them anyways,
Yeah.
because I'm a transparent.
Yeah.
It was just pretty much, it was just and then it just happened. We
Yeah.
slept with each other, and then boom, that was at 14, and
Yeah.
then he kind of became my boyfriend, but. It was the crazy part about it is I never liked him. Even whenever it happened, it was just disgusting. I was disgusted. It was just like, ew, like it was just.
I'm
but
disgusted for you.
But it was just like
don't
when
like
they
him
talk
either.
about, two will become one flesh. Like it was just like I just got sucked in, and then later on, is he worked, and so then he bought me things, and then it was just like, okay, well, it's not that bad. And then my mom was never, because my mom was like, well, she's gonna do whatever she's gonna do, because I was just,
Yeah.
I was just, troubled and just
So-
getting in trouble.
So,
And
2 questions before we get to you getting pregnant with me. At that point in your life, did you have a vision or a goal or a dream of what life would be? And second, I think I know the answer to this. He was not a part of whatever that dream was, I'm guessing.
no, never. No.
So, like, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I always wanted to be a secretary. I remember I was this, just because of the struggle that I saw my mom and my tias and them cleaning old people's homes. I was like, I knew I never wanted to clean houses. It was just because it just was so much work and they got paid nothing.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to be in an office and be a secretary. Like that was as a kid,
Okay.
right? Seeing, my family in Mexico being like, I always wanted to be a secretary. Like
So-
that was my dream. But once I started partying and doing that, and because of the reckless life I was living, I never got hooked into one neighborhood, right? So I wanted to be friends with all kinds of people, because then I would know.
So you're speaking as far as like gang culture,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
where you're
Yes,
from.
neighborhoods where
Okay.
I grew up, just because I knew that once, if I was to associate myself with one place, I was gonna have to stay there,
Right.
and that was
Yeah.
it. Because
Okay.
then, where you from, and then the fight. So to me, I was like, nah, I'm for my mama. I was like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not like that. So then I hung out with all kinds of people, from different suburbs and because of, the reckless lifestyle, I'd be in, vans where we were going to the river in the middle of the night, and everybody's drunk. We're all drunk, and we could have got killed.
Right.
There's just, people were shooting and just different stuff. So once I opened myself to that, it was like I wasn't even going to live till I was 18.
Okay.
Like I just had this feeling like I'm not even going to live till I was 18. So it's, I guess what they say now, YOLO, you only live once. So it was just the more drugs I could do, the more alcohol I could
you were just
consume.
living life to the
I was
fullest.
just having, in my mind, I was just having fun at that time. That's when everybody used to cruise Central. And I was this little kid that looked older, and it was just, let me see who I can, as much drugs I could do. And once I opened myself up, when I lost my virginity, it was just like, let me see how many, I don't think I've ever talked about this. Let me see how many people I can sleep with. It was just reckless.
Do you remember the moment you found out you were pregnant with Aunt?
Yeah, walk us through that. How did that come about?
Well, yeah, and then after, right, because I was with your dad, but I wasn't only with him, because I was still in high school. So
Yeah.
I was, it was like, okay, he thought I was his only boyfriend, but then yet I was. But when I found out I was pregnant with you, of course, I missed my period, and,
Yeah.
it was just like, oh, shoot, like, I'm 15, and oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And I just, I'm sure because I missed my period. I don't think I ever got morning sickness. But
Were you like scared?
Right.
Were you like, okay, like I'm gonna take care of this baby? Were you like, I need to
at first
have an
I didn't know
abortion?
what I was gonna do. I just knew that something was. So I went near the high school I was at. There was like a women's health care center. Now I think it's one of those places where they. A faith-based where they walk you
Yeah.
through, like, okay,
Here's your
keeping
options.
and here are your
Yeah.
options. And I remember going there and them talking to me, and I was like, okay, what they said to me was like, I don't think abortion was ever a question, but it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? My mom, like, okay, what's going to happen? I kind of didn't, I was so young,
Yeah.
but I just remember taking the test when, told my mom in the bathroom, and the first thing she said was, I don't care. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You don't care? but do you love me? And she's like, well, like that's it. Like you have a kid, you're on your own. And
Right.
but at the same time, I think your dad was living with us,
Oh,
so he
okay.
was older. I don't know how that happened either, where he ended up coming with us. And you got to remember too, in the Mexican, to be young with somebody, that's kind of
Right.
normal over
Yeah.
there. I
Well, the
mean, you have
whole
quinceañeras,
right
yeah,
at
the whole
15,
quinceañeras.
you're free to
So I
get
just think
married.
my mom was just like, well, she's gonna do whatever she's gonna do. I mean, she's just. I've never really asked her. I don't. I mean, maybe I
Okay,
should
next
ask her.
podcast.
Next pod, we'll ask her. I don't know. But it's kind of like, okay, you have your teenage daughter here with her boyfriend.
Right.
You don't think that's gonna happen,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so, and it's pretty much like, when that happened, I told her that. I remember I hurt my heart because it's like, okay, sit here and tell me you don't care about me no more, but do you love me? And I just didn't understand. But I think in the what she was trying to say is like, I don't care what, like, you need to figure yourself
Right. You're
out.
gonna
Like,
figure this
you
out.
need to figure this out. You need to do what you, because I'm sure even though she never said anything, I'm sure she knew what I
Right.
was doing behind the scenes.
So what was the response like from my dad? Because he alre's got
He already had
3,
kids.
4
I'm sure he probably
kids.
didn't even care. I
Yeah.
don't, honestly, I don't even remember. I'm
Okay.
sure it was just like, okay,
I don't even think he knows how many kids he has, honestly. I
I'm
don't
sure
think
it was
he's
probably
aware.
like, okay, well, but I just remember too, right? Because we all hung around the same people. I mean, it was a big thing. I mean, I remember, your brother's mom wanting to beat me up and but it was just like, it wasn't like, that wasn't it just kind of happened,
Yeah.
and it was just like, man, like, okay,
Well,
if I ever see her, then that's going to happen. It'll happen.
I want to know anywhere out there in the world teenage parents that wanted it to happen. I don't think as a teenager you ever want that to happen. Like,
no, I don't think you do. But if you're having sex, you know that could happen.
oh right,
And then that
if your
too,
parents talk to you about it and you're aware.
Yeah, I mean, my mom never really talked, but at the same time, back in the 90s, there was a bunch of us. Like, a lot of my friends were all teenage mothers,
Yeah.
So it wasn't, it was like what is it, epidemic
Yeah.
at that time,
Okay.
because, I mean, they had a school at the high school for pregnant,
Oh wow.
just don't tell you the age of your father, of your baby's dad, because we'll have to report it. But that's how I was able to graduate high school. But with that, being a teenage mom, it was like the hardest thing, but at the same time, Anthony saved my life.
Yeah. So
You
did
know,
it change the course of your life?
It changed it halfway, I would say. And what I mean change it is because, okay, once I found out I was pregnant with him, I remember doing drugs, I think, in the beginning, but I didn't know I was pregnant with him. I completely stopped. I completely stopped, drinking, stopped getting high, because I'm like, oh, my baby, and, my baby. And, I thought, I just didn't want, I just, out of the 4 kids, he's the only one that I did that with. So that just
Aw.
goes to show, where it was just, and I think it was just because I was just young, and
Yeah.
and then, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish school. I don't think if I would have had him, would I have finished high school? Probably not. I was
Yeah.
just, now I had somewhat like of a purpose,
Okay.
where it was like, okay, I have a somewhat of a goal, different goal, where it was just like, okay, I'm not even going to live till I'm 18. No, I'm going to, have
Now
this
your
baby.
baby is your goal. Yeah, that makes sense.
So walk us through, you're pregnant. Were you with my dad through pregnancy?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, we were together. Yeah, through your pregnancy, he was there. He worked, and I went to school, and I got picked up to go to school, and all the way, had you. He wasn't there when you were born, because we thought I was going to be in labor. But as soon as he walked out, you popped out. So
I'm born.
You're born.
How did life change?
Born.
How do you manage?
So I still kept going to school. I still lived together until you were about like 1.5. That's when things started changing with him, because it was just, I'm sure he got bored. I don't know. It was just, I thought I was going to marry him. I was going to be with him for the rest of my life after.
So you thought, at some point you thought that.
I thought,
okay.
yeah, like I was just going to be with him forever. But then it was just, of course, he was just older, and then he moved on to the next one. Then I find out he's cheating on me. Then we start, fighting, and domestic violence, and I got a restraining order on him. And I remember I caught him with your next set of siblings.
I would say,
mother.
what's your age difference with Caesar? Like 2 years?
2-3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's during that. So during that time, I mean, I don't know when they started messing around each other, but I find out, and of course I have this anger, and because I thought I was gonna be with him, and
You put the pause on him.
Huh? Yeah. So then I just remember one time I was just like, I caught him, sent him to the house, and he just socks me one time. Boom. He gives me a black eye just once. Called the cops, goes to prison for 9 months. Okay. During that time, all right, let's, try to work things out. Let's get together, start writing him, start seeing him. Me and Anthony go see him. Right when he gets out, nope, she just had a baby. Not once did he mention
That
that
she was
she was
pregnant.
pregnant with your brother Caesar. If I would
That
have
is
known that,
crazy.
if I would have known that, I would have cut off.
Yeah.
But that once I found that out, I was like, I'm not dealing with another kid. Like I'm not dealing with this back and forth. And so that was it. It was over.
And
It
this
was.
was I was
You were 2 years old.
2 years
Yeah,
old,
you
so
were 2 years
98.
old. So yeah,
So
yeah.
1998.
So you're born '86.
You
So
move
yeah,
you
98.
move on from my dad. You're done.
Yeah, we're done. Yeah, we're
Greatest
done.
decision you ever made. Um,
I know.
so just how was that? Because you said you graduated high school,
I
so
graduated high
we were going
school.
to school together,
Yeah, we went to school together. We went on the little yellow bus would pick us up, and
Aw.
and
I
then
graduated high school on time. Yeah, I
and
graduated high
a,
school on
a
time.
f- short time after that, my sister Desiree was born because she
Yeah.
was born 99,
She was born 99.
2099.
Yeah.
So
So
3
you
years
were
later.
20 when
Yeah, I
she
was
was
20
born.
when I had her. Yeah,
So
and her, it was just kind of one of those things. And like I said earlier, I didn't change my life because I was still dabbling. I was still going to school, right? I was still working, dabbling in things, but I was still doing drugs, and still, sleeping around. And
Do you mean like smoking weed or like what do you mean by doing drugs?
yeah, I was smoking weed and doing, I think I
Because
was
back
doing
then, weed
meth.
was a bad
Meth?
drug.
Huh?
Back then, weed was
My drug of choice was meth.
okay.
So, but I was a functioning addict. I didn't do meth during the week like everybody else I knew.
Yeah.
I did it on the weekends. So
So
it
you were
was
like,
just
okay,
kinda
I'm doing better.
Friday,
than them.
Saturday. I'm doing better than anybody else because I'm still going to school. I have my own place. I have my own car. Like so, it was. But I was still like living this secret life, right? I have my kids. I'm a mom and doing this stuff, but on the down low.
Okay, yeah.
With whoever, whether it was my family or my friends or still doing my own thing. Still going to work and.
So
your sister.
before we get too far away from you being a teenager, as a teenage parent, like, was it tough? Did you feel like you had to carry a lot on your shoulders, or were there a lot of programs and things, aid that?
It was tough because, right, I mean, when you're a teenager, you want to just, I didn't get to experience like homecoming or, playing sports and stuff like that. But because I already had taken care of my siblings, it was kind of, I just transitioned from one caretaker to another. So it wasn't like detrimental where I just, became just so sad. I did have postpartum depression. I didn't know that then, but I did for like 2 weeks with you. But then as soon as I felt better, I was
So
good.
there's a I'll let you tell it, but there's a moment where I think if you make this decision, because I think you just had me at this time, I think our lives hit a totally different path. What was that? When you had to say no,
Oh, to go into the military.
right? What was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, because I remember in high school, right, when you're in senior, they make you take the test and, the ASVAB test. And sorry, if I don't know if I'm saying that right, but, it kind of takes what you would be good at. And I just remember whatever score I took it was super high to get into the Air Force. And it was like, okay, these are good, you can get in. But I remember they're like, but you're going to have to sign your son away and give him, to somebody while you're in boot camp. And I remember I was like, I can't be away from my baby. Like,
Yeah.
I can't. You would have went with my mom.
Right.
But it was just at that time, I was like, there's no way. Like, there's no way I'm going to leave you.
And
There's no way.
I find
Yeah.
that story funny because we'll get to this, but when we found out she was pregnant, that was the first thing I was like, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like the military is gonna have to be the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So it's just funny how you had that opportunity.
And I turned it down.
And
Our
then-
lives would have been so different if I
Right.
would have done it. Yeah.
So fast forward, you have 2 kids,
Yeah.
and you meet my dad. We've come on here and talked
Step-
about
yeah.
he's my dad, my
Yeah.
stepdad,
Yeah.
but our kids, that's my dad. That's their
grandpa.
grandpa. I mean, we could be here all day talking about you guys, but just how was that? Because the way you guys got together is even
Just
funny.
hilarious.
It's like you said, it's a funny. You've lived a crazy life, but to this day, he's still part of our lives. He's still
Yeah.
there.
It's so crazy though hearing when you tell stories about when you guys got together and
Yeah.
even when Michael and Bianca, which is his little siblings when they were little, and I'm like, that is not my father-in-law.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's just a completely different person.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
tell us how you met him.
So we met, through one of the people that I hung out with in the neighborhood, and through mutual friends, and it was one of my friends, and that was just not even like I wasn't even looking to be in a relationship. I was just, doing my own thing, and I just remember one day I was coming down off of meth because I had done it the night before, and a friend was inviting me like, we're all going to the river, and it's like, no, and I had you and Desiree, and She was just like, come on, let's go, it'll be fun, try to get, and it was probably during the week, I don't know what day it was, but, and I remember going, and here pulls up this Camaro with this bald-headed, you know, light-complected guy, and it was just like, okay, and, you know, didn't even think nothing of it. There was some girl in there that was pregnant, so I was like, okay, that might be his girlfriend, or just, you know, just seeing them. I knew the other guy, the owner of the car, and I just remember going, and I never met him before. I've heard of him, right? Because people wanted some TVs. He was working at Walmart. I guess he was the Connect at that time. So, you know, I just heard of him because they'd be like, "You want a TV?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. You know, like I don't buy stolen stuff."
Well,
Oh
wait,
my
hit
God, I
that,
don't buy
hit
stolen
that,
stuff.
because this was a moral that was installed into me at a very young age by you. You never bought anything that was stolen.
Because then it would get stolen from you. Yep.
Yeah.
I just so even no, I never even stole it from the store because it's like, nope, it was gonna come back. Like I totally just believe that in my core. Like, nah, don't buy stolen stuff. You work for it, or you know, borrow the money or something, but don't steal.
If they had come trying to sell like body wash and shampoo,
everything,
and
shoes,
she's
clothes,
like, nope,
I'd be like,
nope.
nope, it's $2, and nope. I'd be like, no, I'm not having that. No, I'm not doing that. And so then, I just remember him. Of course, we were all drunk. He was drunk and being obnoxious and loud, and I was like,
You never stop.
Yeah, and it was just
obnoxious.
like I'm totally not like that. You know, I'm very introverted and very quiet, and it was just, you know, he's just being loud and okay, so whatever. And I just remember we were sitting on this rock, and he kept like pushing my back, and I don't know if it's deliberately, but it was just like annoying, and I'm just like, you know, just like not feeling good, not wanting to be there, but just there, and just, you know, there was a fight happening there. He goes over there running to the fight, and I just remember, you know, after we came home, whatever, nothing was said, and 2 weeks later, I was like, oh, tell him I said what's up, you know, tell Bugs I said what's up, like, and it wasn't even like, oh, okay, what's up? It was just like, oh, tell him I said hi, you know, and at that time, a lot of the people that we hung out with, a lot of the guys wanted me to be with them, and it was like, no, like, nah. Like, you know, and I'm cool. Like, we're just cool, just hanging out. And 2 weeks later, we connected, and that was it. The rest is history. It was just like...
She heard that Cholo accent, and she was hooked for life.
Come to find out, right? You know, then at that time, I was, like, into the Cali guys, you know, the guys from Cali, because they're just different from the Arizona guys. They were just loud and just out there, and he just was so total opposite for me. But just there was just something about him. I can't tell you what it was that... You know, that just captivated, you know, I was just captivated.
So how soon before you're pregnant with Bianca?
Well, how soon before he moved into your house?
You mean like he never really technically moved in? He just came over and he just never
That's what
left.
I'm saying. When did he come over?
Yeah, he probably came over that weekend.
Oh my God.
No, it was just like,
And
hey,
then
can I
never
come over? And he did have a job, okay, but red flag, he still lived with his parents.
Yeah.
He had recently gotten out of prison like a couple months before, but it was just like, hey, can I come over? Okay, you know what I mean? I mean, I guess I could have said no, but it was like, whatever, you know. I'll fit you into my schedule. I don't know. So then he just kind of came over and he just never left, and he just kept coming over every weekend, and then eventually he just never left. Never left, you know.
You
We
still
got
can't get
through
rid
some
of him.
fights, you know, in between there. I think like probably less than a month later we were fighting, I'm sure. We were, you know, but it's like how just jealousy stuff. But it's like how can you be jealous when you just meet somebody?
Story.
A hood love story, you know. Just
So then, right to your question, how long till you got pregnant with my sister Bianca?
I got married first, actually.
Oh yeah, you guys did get married.
We got married after 7 months.
Wait, tell the story of your proposal, please. It's so funny.
Okay, well, Mike says. Okay, so
His version.
wait, the true story. Okay, this is just how slick and twisted we were. Okay, so some stuff happened. He wrecked my car. You know, just jealousy stuff, right? At the club, numbers, whatever.
That's
so
your fault. That's your fault.
Wrecks my car, and he leaves, and then, you know, I end up cheating on him with Desiree's dad, and you know, so in order to make it up, right, so we can get back together, I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll just propose to him. Don't do drugs, okay? This is what drugs does. So this was my ultimate, like, okay, we're gonna get back together, and so it's like I take him to, you know, our bridge and tell him to turn around, and he thinks I'm gonna beat him up, and which I probably should have, but you know, and I get down on one knee and I ask him to marry me. I was like,
what did he say?
And he said, yeah. Once he realized that I wasn't gonna, but it's like, why did I do that? But then I was very non-traditional, like, right? I was like, why can't girls propose? Why does a guy always have to propose?
Well, here's a pro tip: if you ever want to get back together with someone, You just get naked. You didn't have to propose.
I'm not
That's how
gonna
I
do
got
that in
him back.
public.
I
I'm
did
not
it
gonna
in
do that
public.
I would have
I
got
did
locked
it at
up.
the Boys and Girls Club.
Oh my God, Bethany, I don't want to know that. Okay, this is why I don't listen to the podcast because
Okay,
there's too
moving on.
TMI.
Moving on. So
So
then
you go to
propose.
Vegas. You go to Vegas.
Well,
Get
so
married.
yeah, so I proposed, and then yeah, we go, and it was Super Bowl weekend. It's like, okay, let's go to Vegas. Never been there, and we ended up eloping at the little white chapel, and got married on Super Bowl Sunday because I like football. He liked football, and
Why am I like, oh,
How
it's so
romantic.
cute.
That's the
you know,
only
we had
romantic
no
part.
kids, we had nobody there, and it was like, okay, and I'm sure I probably paid for it and charged it on a credit card. I don't. It's just. Yeah, that was before, and then I got pregnant right away because Bianca was born in November.
So
Yeah.
2000, you got married.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wait, 2001.
2001.
Wait, 2000.
No, 2001. Bianca's
No,
2001.
Bianca was born 2001, so we got married in we met in 2000.
Okay. So met
Yeah.
2000,
Father's
married
Day
2000.
Yeah, Father's
Dang.
Day.
Okay.
And then you
Yeah.
get pregnant with Bianca. You have Bianca, and then what? A week later, you're pregnant again,
I
or what
got
was
pregnant
it?
again. Yeah, pretty much.
Because Michael and
right
Bianca
away.
are 11 months
They're
apart.
11 months apart. So, and in between that, you know, right? We get married, and you know, we have the kids. We're still, of course, and then me and your dad were very heavily in drugs. You know, we drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. And so where you remember us fighting, right? There's always just because when you had just mixed drugs and stuff, it's just always about where are you looking at and right, just just a lot of mind stuff that goes on. You see things, you hear things, and stuff happens. When you're doing stuff like that.
So your relationship, can we say, was built on a lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol,
Lust,
infidelity,
perversion,
just a bad mix of
bad mix,
things, right?
Bad mix of things. Not only that, our traumas, right? So you're bringing up our past, our history, stuff that we both went through.
Yeah, which
So-
is your foundation.
Combined,
So
yeah.
Right.
then
So
you
it's
bring it
just a
together.
melting pot of madness.
Yes.
So at some point, you guys hit I would like to say a rock bottom. Bethany doesn't believe in those really.
Shut up.
You hit a rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
And the only reason why I would say rock bottom is because it was a life-changing situation. Your life changed
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
this point on.
Yeah.
What was that? Because obviously today, sitting
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
everything we just said, none of that is. Bethany sometimes doesn't even believe the stories because she's like, "There's no way." So obviously today, sitting here, present day,
Yeah.
the story is different. You live
Yeah.
different lives. What changed? What gave? How did you get to here to where you're here sober,
Yeah.
a grandmother of a lot of grandkids.
Grandkids.
You're still together.
Yeah.
You guys fight and it's just bickering. So how do we get there? How do we get here in your personal
So
life?
we definitely had to hit rock bottom, right? I mean, like I said, we had all those issues, and he would leave. So basically, he did what my dad did, where he would leave for days at a time and didn't come back. So it was kind of like, okay, well, he has to be with somebody else because you just don't come home for days and not come back to your family.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just, I kind of knew, but then we'd always have that cycle. We'd break up, get back together, break up, get back together. We'd move houses, or he would leave, and he wouldn't pay the rent, or he wouldn't help me pay the rent because I always worked during this time too.
Oh, sorry. And one quick question: how old were you when by the time Michael was born? And
So we
all
got
of that?
together. He was 4 years old.
okay, so
was
like your
4.
whole life, that's what you remember
So
then.
Right.
pretty much,
Okay.
yeah. So he was toddler,
Yeah.
right? Because that's toddler age. So I pretty much hit rock bottom, and it was during the times that he had left. But what was different this time was one of my friends that worked at a grocery store actually seen him with somebody else.
So you had proof.
Oh,
evidence.
yeah, and this was somebody that was credible. You know,
Okay.
they were just somebody that I grew up. One of my friend's sister, and was like, hey, I saw it, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is my proof. So all right, that's all I needed. Just like, when I found out that your dad had your brother,
Okay.
it was like, okay, it was that thing. So got the divorce papers because we were married, and I was looking for him, and the repo man was looking for him because I had gotten a truck, under my name, and it was like, okay, this is over. It's it. I'm done with him. Like it's gonna be over. And couldn't find him, and it was just they repoed the car, and then he calls me, thinking that it was me that repoed it, and I'm like, I don't have the means. Like I'm not gonna pay for a car. Yes, it's under my name. But he calls me one day and he tells me, he's like, hey, just to let you know, and I used to hear excuse in the book why he didn't come home. Something happened, or somebody died, or something, just crazy stories. But he's just like, hey, just wanted to let you know that I started going to church, and I'm like, what? Like what are you talking about? Like, I mean, And he's just like, oh, I just want to invite you, one time as a friend. And I'm like, like, just thought it was a weird call. I never heard that excuse from him.
Yeah.
But all he said was just come to one service with me. And he's like, and I will sign the divorce papers. So I'm like, okay, well, to me, I kind of, we went to church. I mean, just whatever we grew up in, we're just Catholics, and went to church when we felt like it, or maybe on a holiday or somebody got married. That was it. But other than that, that's pretty much all, any kind of form of, I guess you want to talk about religion. And he just says, I want you to come to church this one time, and I'll sign the divorce papers. Okay, so granted, that's the only church I've ever been to. I've heard of other denominations and stuff, but never ever visited anywhere. Okay, so I'm like, all right, that's all I wanted was a divorce. That's it. That's all
So
I
it's
wanted.
music to your ears.
Yeah.
So it was just music. Okay, all right. He's gonna, and then we're gonna be at a public place, So it's like he'll just sign it, and I'll be on my merry way. And I remember walking into this little church in Mesa, like never, just walking in. And I'll bring this just because it's another story. I remember walking in, and like two people came and shook my hand, and they called me somebody else's name, like, hey, because people are like that at church, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, that's not my name.
Yeah.
Like, I've never been. That was the first time ever being. And I just remember sitting there mad and just like, what the heck? Did he come here with somebody else? Like, he
Yeah.
forgot to tell me that story. Like, he didn't say nothing. I just remember sitting there, and I'm like, don't remember what was said. I don't even remember what was preached. I just remember that they did the service. Somebody came up, asked me if I wanted to go pray at the altar, and I'm like, no. I'm like, that's embarrassing. I'm not going to go. I didn't do anything. They're like, okay, do you want me to pray at your chair? And I'm like, okay, sure. Just kind of to try to get it, just so they could leave me alone. And I just remember them praying at the chair, and it was just like, okay, after we left that day, I was, confronting him about it and yelling, and just remember yelling at him, and, and he was driving, and you came there with another girl, and he was like, no, I didn't, and I just remember I just was just going, and he's just like literally driving, just punching me, and we were going, the Loop 101 was just, it was newer, so it was like when it curves, and I don't know if anybody's familiar with Arizona, but the 101 goes into the 202, the big old curve. And I remember, and all the kids were in the back seat.
Not me. I was at my dad's house. I
Were you
remember
at your
this.
dad's house?
Mhm.
Oh, it was a Wednesday, so I
No,
don't think you were
no,
at your dad's
I
house.
got dropped off at the trailer,
Did you?
and I was with Goyo, and she was like, Bugs came and picked, and I was like, oh no, that's not good.
Yeah.
And then it was late at
then-
night, and I was
okay,
just
so you
there
weren't
because
in
she
the
had to
car
go to
then.
work.
Okay, so you
So
didn't
I was
go.
there waiting for you guys to come home,
Oh,
and
yeah,
I
because
knew.
I was supposed to go watch you guys, because I used to have a
Yeah.
roommate. She worked graveyards.
No, I remember that day.
And I remember him, like, he wouldn't take me home, like, after that, and I remember, and he was hitting me, and I'm just like, he was like, you're lying, you're crazy, because I was always, when I would confront him about things, I was always crazy, I was always lying, but I remember him hitting me, and I just remember a split second, I just wanted to end it, like, it was just, I never had the thought of suicide, I never thought about that, but it was just like, I'm done with him, I'm done with this life, I'm just done, tired of just being, like, sad, and just, it was just very, just a down time in my life, just because, of him, and just, I wanted to be with him, but then I couldn't get away from him, and then I just remember thinking, like, I just want to open this car door and just throw myself out, and I had my hand on the handle, but it was a voice was just like, think about your kids, what's going to happen with your kids, it wasn't like a deep voice, it wasn't God, it was just this still small voice that said, what about the kids? What about your kids? And I remember I didn't do it. And, of course, he drove me around wherever, and we were fighting. And get home, okay, so I can't say I had, like, this supernatural thing, but something happened to me that day. Like, something happened because 2 days later, I was at church. Like, this was a church that, goes out and, I don't know if anybody knows about outreaching, but they go tell people door to door about Jesus. And I was there 2 days later. I was there the next Sunday. I was there. It wasn't nobody. It was just kind of like, I don't know. Like, it was just like, I don't know what this is, but I'm going to come just where I was at. But then that's when I started. I had this just supernatural encounter with Jesus that it wasn't religion. It was just at the right moment, at the right time. And then that's when I just started going to church. Like, it was just like, okay, I have this life. I have this depression, this sadness, this stuff. But then it's like, okay, I'm coming here and these people are nice. Even though I didn't know what happened, I was still mad about that. I didn't find out 2 years later that he did go with somebody. But it was like, You know, I couldn't even tell that part of my story for many years because I was embarrassed. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, my husband was cheating. That's how I came to church, because my husband was cheating. Come to find out, he came with that girl there, and came to a revival. Somebody comes and does services during the week, and my life changed from there.
So you have this life-changing moment,
Yeah.
obviously not overnight,
Yeah,
but you are 20 years in this year, right? 2003.
been clean and sober for
20
21
years. So,
21 years.
um,
That's crazy.
I mean, obviously that
Yeah.
journey's been just
Yeah.
as much of a roller coaster,
Yeah.
and we could be here all day with that.
Yeah.
But let's get back to you as a parent. For me, because I did witness the drugs,
Yeah.
the abuse, all that, and then you guys change your life. I don't remember if it was like you just quit cold turkey or if it was kind of a slow progression towards being clean. But obviously your parenting styles change.
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a gangster.
Oh yeah, and I
Wh-
wanted you
right?
to be a gangster too.
And
yeah.
no, really, that's I say that and people laugh. Like, no,
No,
I
I
wanted
really was.
to
Like,
be a
yeah.
bank robber. I wanted to
Yeah.
join a gang. Like, those are things that I
Yeah.
wanted to do. Obviously, you get saved, you start going to church. That changes. So your parenting changes. So at what point did you? We'll just keep it at me. Were you like, okay, I was a teenage parent. I did these things. At what point was it? Before you started going to church, or was it after you went to church? You're like, all right, I don't want my kids to go through what I went through, to do what I did. I mean, because it was even with like girls, you'd be like, don't touch girls,
Yeah,
don't hug
yeah,
girls, don't
yeah.
kiss girls, don't nothing.
Yeah.
So you kind of took it to an extreme.
Yes.
Was that something that you were going to do no matter what, or was it when you got saved, started going to church? Did your outlook on how you parented change?
After I had my encounter and I realized that I had no self-love, no self-respect for myself, just because of the things that I was doing. Once I realized that, oh my gosh, like God, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just felt this immense love, like this, okay, I'm gonna, kind of like have more respect for myself, like, more dignity, like I'm worthy, like, because I felt worthless just because, like just being, for my father, just everything that I went through just felt like unworthy of love and that I could have true love. Once I felt that peace come over me, it was like this, it changed in my mind that I thought I loved my kids, but I didn't. Like, because never once when I was doing all that stuff did I ever think of them. Never once did I think, oh, well, I could do drugs and I could die, or I'm putting them in these dangerous situations. It was literally like what I wanted to do, what I felt like doing, what made me happy, my feelings, my emotions. But once I had that encounter, it was like, oh my gosh, I want to protect my kids. Like, I want to save them. I don't want my kids to be teenage parents. I don't want them to do drugs. I don't want them to.
Right.
So it was just this like obsession for me, like to just take like shelter you, you
Right.
know? So then it was just, okay, well, I don't want, my biggest fear was to be, my kids to be teenage parents. Like, it was such a big fear of mine because I just didn't want any of my kids to go through that. And of course, Anthony was the oldest, so I was more strict with him.
Right.
Because I was allowed to do anything, I was allowed to go, just, I did it sneakily. My mom didn't know, but I was going to my friends and look at what I did. So it was just like, okay, well, I was allowed to do everything, so I'm not gonna,
They
I'm
didn't
gonna
let us
be
do
like
anything.
more, nope, you're not gonna do this, you're not gonna do that, you're not gonna do this.
I think the perfect how I'd explain it is the story of when you got with my dad, because he's been to prison. He's crazy. Michael's crazy.
Yeah.
We got together, and I used to just go off, cuss at you, go off. He didn't like that. So this is someone that is living a fast life,
Yeah.
living crazy, and he was like,
Yeah.
"Oh wait, hold on." And then the guns. So when I was a kid,
Yeah.
toy guns everywhere. You know how people take pictures with their guns? They put them on the bed, and they like, before there was any cameras, I would just set my guns out and like, oh, I'm gonna shoot, and he was like, hey, I'll buy your guns off you, because he didn't like my obsession with guns, because in all of the movies they had guns, and he bought what, $20, he bought all my guns,
I
and
didn't know that.
No.
Off of you, yeah.
and then to that's how it was when he met you, and then to, all right, well, you can't go to the mall. I wasn't able to go to the mall. I wasn't able to stuff that normal kids did, whether it was with the opposite sex or whoever they were attracted to or not.
Yeah.
I didn't do any of that because you were like, no, this is things that happen.
This
So
is where you go and do stuff that you shouldn't.
So
and
it was-
girls are fast. They're very aggressive.
So it was when you started going to church, that's when that changed. So let's fast
Yeah.
forward a few years.
Yeah.
because even though you didn't allow us to do a lot, I did a lot secretly,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I was very,
Mhm.
very smart on my
Oh, yeah.
feet. I could lie.
Oh,
I
yeah.
would change numbers in the caller ID to say it was someone else. You know, all these different things that you were trying to avoid that I still did. Were you aware of any of that? Like, or
Nothing.
were you naive, or did you genuinely believe you believe what I was saying when I was doing? Like,
I had to have been both, right? I mean, because I mean, you were such a great kid. Like, you never gave me any doubt that you were not. And then she changed the number. I guess probably because I never had to do that kind of
Right.
stuff. So how would I know that you were doing that stuff? You know, anybody. I mean, we didn't have caller ID when I was a kid. It was just
Yeah.
a regular
but
phone.
even before Bethany, like elementary school, junior high, like I had girlfriends. I was going to people's houses.
You were a very, very popular kid. And I saw it because I remember when you wanted to join choir, and I knew it was for the girls. So it's like the girls were always after you, and because as a mom you see things, okay, but you know whether or not, I mean, what you were doing behind the scenes, I had no idea. But that's why I was like, and then at that time there was a lot of stories where kids were getting framed, you know, because they didn't like that girl, and that girl would accuse them of stuff, and I was terrified. Like, I didn't want that to happen
Well,
to
she would
you.
really say it, like,
You know, because I would be like, don't let the girls touch, because then if you hug them, if you don't like them, then they might say something against you, and then, you know, I just didn't want you to get in trouble for just because you didn't like a girl and she liked you and she was infatuated. Like,
so
like I
once
said,
again,
Well,
extreme.
yeah,
Extreme.
I remember one time it was like after school pickup, and you would always get there like a little bit late.
Everyone knew your van.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thank
but
you,
Anthony
heard it.
Anthony would like he was hugging me, and then he like saw his mom drive up, and he pushed me away like so fast, like kind of pushed me behind a pillar so that she couldn't see me, and I was like, what the heck? Like, I was so confused, and I'm like, you're not allowed to hug me. Like, and he was like, no, like I saw a boat or like something like that, like made an
Yeah.
excuse, and I was like, and then I was just like, okay, whatever. Like, I never thought more about it, and like
Yeah,
looking back,
yeah.
I'm like, you idiot. Like, why wouldn't you have questioned that more?
Yeah.
I never questioned anything with him.
So let's
I never
transition.
thought I was a secret at all.
Let's transition into that period. So,
Yeah.
I'm going into high school.
Yeah.
You have a friend that I confided in. I don't know. I was a big dummy. Best mistake I ever made in my life. Told her I had a MySpace. I had a girlfriend. I log in on her phone. We add each other as friends.
Yeah.
I hop on the city bus because I'm going to football practice.
Yeah, it's in the summer. Yeah.
So summer, I was going into high school. I was
going freshman.
playing football.
McClintock.
My mom never. I rode the city bus everywhere
Everywhere.
because we were living in Mason. I was going to school in Tempe, and practice is not even done. And I see you walk in, and I'm like, "Oh, hi!" Like I don't know.
Yeah.
You grab me by my ear, and you're like, "We're leaving."
In the locker room in front of
Yeah.
everyone.
We had just got our schedule.
Everybody was there.
Yeah, we had just got our summer
Yeah.
schedule, and I'm like, "Oh, look, mom, dude." She didn't say nothing. Threw me in the car, and just like, "What is this?" And I was just like, "Oh, dang!" Like, all right, I caught myself in trouble. So then that's when that summer I was on lockdown,
Yeah.
like just pretty much vanished off the face of the earth because she had found out I had a MySpace.
And you had a girlfriend. I think that was more because you had a girlfriend.
Oh yeah, I had a
Who?
girlfriend. Don't worry
Who
about
was
it.
it? What
Um,
was her name?
That was the big, like, he wasn't allowed to he wasn't. I told him
Yeah.
until he was 18. Like,
Yeah.
I was set on until you're 18, you're not allowed to date.
So-
not have,
right.
Like, it was
So,
it was 18.
my whole life just uprooted. You send me to this little small Christian school in Gilbert. I'm one of two kids of color at the school.
Yeah.
Do I count?
No.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
And
kidding.
so
Your
I
brother.
think
My brother counts, but not me.
that was like the first time I'd ever actually gotten in trouble for anything
Yeah.
because there had been close
I mean,
calls.
kindergarten before my life.
No, I'm saying
changed.
for like with like a girl or
Yeah,
anything
yeah,
of that
anything
nature.
major, like,
Because like I used to have people like, yo, stand right here when my mom comes.
Yeah.
Different whatever. That was the first time I actually gotten caught for anything, and it was my own fault. And so we go through. At that point, I think that's when we really started to like butt heads,
Yeah.
and because before I was like a perfect kid, I didn't
You
talk
were
back. I
perfect.
did my chores.
You
I
got
took care of the
good
kids all
grades.
summer, good grades. And that's when I really was just like, all right, like you just pulled me from everything because I went to the same elementary school,
Yeah.
to one junior high,
Yeah.
to one like everyone. All my friends. I have friends from kindergarten. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
these are people that I had my whole life with. I didn't hop schools.
Yeah.
You took me there. Obviously, in high school, you have more interest.
Yeah.
You're going through puberty.
Yeah.
What?
So you had no idea about Bethany?
I had a feeling she liked you. Like I kind of would see her and just like I would see her with the kids, but I didn't think like there was anything going on.
So do you remember your first interaction with Bethany that we actually talked about? The school conference, parent teacher conference. Do you remember that?
When the teacher called her the B word. And I went and told you.
Yeah.
Because I knew of the family, right? And the parent conferences. I mean, they literally, the table was like where you guys are at. And I remember it was,
which is so quiet. Weird. Why would they do that?
It was so, and then
like all the parent teacher conferences were in the basically like one big room, like the sanctuary of the church, and like each teacher had a table set up, and you could hear everything that was going on.
So I remember you came home.
And you liked that teacher. I don't remember that teacher.
Oh yeah,
but he was. I didn't have no. If you like, my kids like the teacher.
I didn't have beef with nobody.
No.
So you didn't think anything like when the teacher got fired a week later? You weren't like, oh.
No, I was just like,
no.
I was just like, oh yeah, because the parents had.
Because she knew your parents had power.
I knew the parents had power.
But I remember you coming home and just be like, I don't like that girl. Like she's drama. And we're together at that point. Like
I had no idea, but it was just because I was scared. I went and told
them. We weren't together yet.
I just remember
we were
we
something.
Liked each other.
We were
didn't start
something.
Dating for another 2 months.
Right, but we were an item at that point.
We were like making out.
Right. And so that was the first time you and I had ever talked about her, because I never brought any of that up.
You never brought it up.
And then fast forward, I come to you and Dad, and I say, hey, I want to date her. This was the first. I was sophomore.
Are you sure it was me?
It was both of you guys.
I said 15.
And I went to them because remember, I'm not allowed to have a girlfriend. I go to you and say, hey, I want to date.
Yeah.
No answer. No response. We go to bed. A few days went by because I was like, all right, I like her.
Yeah.
I had plenty of girlfriends before.
And I remember asking before that if you liked her, but I think he said no.
I was gonna say you didn't do this till like summer.
So I think I might, but I think he told me no. I think I might have brought it up because it was kind of like.
By the time you brought it up to her, we had been dating for 6 months.
Okay, right.
And, like,
so I think so, but then I remember him telling me no. But of course, he
well,
would have said no because I wouldn't. Look at what I did before.
Like we went to like homecoming together.
And and my dad knew about that, but he kept it.
Knew.
Oh yeah.
Or I thought you guys like fully knew because he had money to pay for my dinner, and turns out he got that from your sister.
Yeah, well, I told him because when that was a big thing, because it was like me and Mike were talking. And it's like, should we let him go? And it's like, well, I didn't get to, and then. It was just like, okay, but he has to pay his own way. Like, I'm not giving him, if he wants to do any of that stuff, he has to, pay for it.
So I went to you guys. We're running a long time here. You guys take me to the pastor. He pretty much says no because she doesn't go to this church. And I'm like, well, she's her dad's.
Well, then the reason why, just to clarify, the reason why we did that, okay, right? Me and Dad have no idea about healthy relationships, dating healthy, right? We have a new life. We have a different perspective. You're the oldest. So it's like, okay, we took you to him because it's like, okay, how do we do this? We don't know. Like, okay, if it was our old way, I mean, you'd be leaving out that, you know what I mean? Right. Like it would be, things are different. So it's like, we were kind of caught like, okay, well, should we, right? Because if it was straight no, it would have never happened. It would just been, that's what it was. But it was like, okay, how do we do this?
Trying to go about it differently.
Just trying to find somebody outside that wasn't connected emotionally, right? Okay. Because I'm emotionally connected to you. Your dad is. Like, let's get, somebody other output, which is why we did that.
Right. So now that makes sense. But back then I'm like, I went to my parents. Like, why are we talking to this guy? He says no. Long story short, he says no. And then at that point I was like, all right, well, for me, I felt like I don't have parents then. Like, this pastor is making the decisions. They don't make the decisions. And I think 2 weeks later is when I ran away.
Yeah. And he wasn't the decision. Yes, he guided, but ultimately it was us. Like, ultimately, right, because it's our home.
Right.
But when you're a teenager, it didn't feel like that, right? Because you only see, I came to him, they said this. Because, I mean, your dad behind the scenes, we were talking.
I'm sure. I'm sure. Now I look at it differently.
Different perspective.
So I run away. You guys obviously now know we are an item because Bianca said we are an item.
Snitched, and then I find out what you guys were doing in my house, and... Oh, I was so angry.
So you,
so angry.
When I ran away, I had set a court date to be emancipated, which means to gain legal guardianship of myself.
Yeah.
I get picked up because I wanted to go back to school. I had to be back in school. I knew because I was living with the Garcia side of the family, and they're still doing that same from when you were around them.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't for me. Yeah. I couldn't live like that, so I was like, I got to figure out how to get back into school. That triggered something in the system.
Yeah,
they alerted you.
Called me because I called the school and I was like, if anybody requests his records, you call me ASAP. So they did.
So I was at Glendale High
Yeah.
School. Sure enough, I'm in class one day. The cops come.
There I
They
am
take
again.
me out. There she's in the
Drag-
office.
Yeah.
Drag his
Drag
ear
him by
again
your
out of
ear
school.
again.
Yeah, dragged me back home. And we had that emancipation date.
Yeah.
At this point, we don't talk. We don't.
No, we were just like, you were just there. And to me, it was like, well, you're my responsibility
Right.
till you're 18. You know, like whatever you do outside this, it can come back on me. So I was like, nope, you're staying here.
I was
till
on
you're 18.
lockdown.
Lockdown.
I made friends at the new school just to communicate with
On
you.
the phone, everything was taken away. Yeah, oh yeah.
The emancipation date comes. The judge says, "Do you have a job?" I say, "No, they won't let me get a job." She says, "Denied."
Nope, denied.
Right. So at that point, I'm 16.
Yeah,
There's 2 years left.
yeah.
What was it where you guys decided, okay, we're either gonna give you an out, because you guys came to me and said, look, if you can show us that you can afford to live on your own,
Yeah.
you're not gonna be couch surfing, you're not gonna live at your nana's house,
Yeah.
you can do it. At 16, we had that conversation, so I was already working, saved up money, and I ended up moving out. But how did you get to that point from nope, you're living here, you're on lockdown?
After, definitely, it was a lot of prayer, and just because of just how I was feeling, how unhappy you were feeling, like how unhappy you were, and just the violation that was there. You know, I felt so violated because of what happened in my house. It was like, man, like, you know, it could have been anywhere else, but here, that just made it more. And it was just kind of like, okay, how do we come out of this? Like what I had to step back and look at, okay, take aside my feelings and emotions, my hurt of whatever happened. How am I going to try to make this better going forward? But I knew I couldn't just kick you out. Like, because of course that's what you wanted.
Right.
So I had
'Cause
to
I would
look
just
back.
go right to my nana's
You
house.
would just go, and I'm like, okay, if I let him go to my mom's just going to let him be there. And, you know, that's not going to be good for him. If he goes with his dad, that's not going to be good for him. I don't want him to be like how his brothers is. So it was just one day we were going to church and I see the sign for rent. And I'm like, okay, well, me and your dad talked about it. If he wants to really leave and be on his own, then let him get a job. He's 16. He could do that, but he still has to go to school. And that's when and I kind of stepped back, and then that's when your dad did all that with you, you know, because of course I was still too emotionally. I didn't want you to leave.
Right,
You know,
'cause I'm 16.
I was heartbroken. Like I was so heartbroken.
At 16, I move out. You still hate Bethany at this point. You don't like Bethany.
Oh no, she was gonna go to jail.
Right.
Like she was gonna go to jail because she was 18.
No, you were waiting till I turned 18.
'cause she
I
was
was
17.
17. I was 17.
And going back now, look at what happened with me. Like your dad should have been locked up. So it was, you know, you
they were
bring
like
all
counting
this
down
stuff.
to my 18th birthday
Oh, no,
so that
like,
they
So-
could get me locked up.
Well, fast forward. I think I moved out like November.
Mm-hmm.
November, December. So 2 months.
Yeah.
She gets pregnant.
Yeah.
Because one of the stipulations was I had to go to church once a week with you guys.
Yeah.
So
you could move out, but you had to still
I had
come
to
to
go
service.
to church once a week. I
You
had to
didn't
stay
have
in
to come
school.
to everything,
Right.
but at least as long as you came to
I
church,
came
attended
to.
the service.
I think.
with
I
us.
think before church, I text you like, "Hey, we need to talk tonight." She's freaking out because you've already threatened jail.
My parents
jail.
are like, we will literally hide her in Tucson.
Oh, I'm sure you- yeah.
We had a plan in place.
But I was like, I
So
gotta
bad.
tell her that you're pregnant because this my kid.
Yeah.
Nothing else was an option.
Yeah.
And I think before I even had said, like, you just looked at me and you're like, she's pregnant.
Pregnant.
And I was like, yeah. And then you just were just like, all right, well, you know what you need to do. Like,
Yeah. No matter what happens, you're gonna take care of the baby.
so at that point, your feeling towards Bethany, did they change at all? Or were you just like, it is what it is now?
As soon as I found out she was pregnant, it changed everything in me because it was like, okay, that's my grandbaby. Like, boom, the focus was just on the baby. And that was it. Like, it was just anything that I wanted to, because if I put you in jail, if I did anything towards you, who is it going to affect? It was going to affect, I didn't know Brooklyn at that time. It was going to affect the baby. So it was a game changer. Brooklyn saved your life.
Thanks, Brooke.
And just like, you know, it's just crazy how that pattern just, you know, keeps happening. But
Yeah.
it literally, it just changed everything. Like, it was just like, that's it, Melissa, just let it go. Like, I was so focused, I'm going to put this girl in jail. She's, you know, just because, you know, I don't know if it had to do with I'm sure it had to do
Right,
with
you're just a
my
vengeful
past, you know,
person.
and just because, oh, you took my son and, you know, you were so aggressive and just, you know,
I was
the
aggressive.
stories that I heard
This
about
guy.
you, you know, and, you know,
I was a
Desiree saying
kid.
you were just mean. Because remember, you played softball with Desiree, so
Mm-hmm.
she said you were not a nice person, you know, and just, you know, just nothing that I ever, like, that I heard or I saw was anything positive. It was just, you were just this
I was a mess.
privileged person,
Yeah.
you know, in my eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
in my eyes. So, but yeah, no, definitely that at that moment right there, it changed
Yeah.
everything once he told
And that's
me.
also right when everything changed with my family too, and it like started coming out that they're not this like perfect family. They're actually like
So
messed up.
And I didn't
So
even know
think,
none of that stuff happened till later,
yeah.
right? Because
Well,
we didn't talk
when I
right
was
away.
pregnant. No,
Yeah,
yeah, but
about
like
what
it took a
happened.
few months, but yeah, I think
yeah, it wasn't all just
No.
gumdrops,
we
lollipops.
started
No.
bonding when I was pregnant, but I think our relationship just gets stronger like through
So
the
you
years
had
and
a
stuff.
question for her.
Yeah, so when would you say you actually started like genuinely liking me, or like has it still not happened yet? Or like like when was it? Was it when Brooklyn was born, Harlem, Deuce? Like when did you get to the point where you weren't like dreading
Where
my
I was
company?
just, I would say probably after Brooklyn was born. Just because I didn't know you,
Yeah.
and in the beginning it was just standoffish because it's like, okay, this girl that I hate, that I was going to put in jail, so it's because I think we connected sometimes, but it didn't become more connected. You know what I think it was, now that I think back? Because I wasn't planning on being in the delivery room, and I totally was okay with that. Because right, I'm not your mom. I'm not your mom. I'm his mom, and I know for us, in the Mexican, or at least in my family, my mom was there with all my kids. I didn't want the dad's mom, like,
Yeah.
no, like that wasn't even a question. So I think when I was, say, hey, can you come? It was just like, what the heck? Like, I wasn't planning on being in there for any of them,
Yeah.
but I was able to participate. I think that's kind of where it was just like, okay.
And
All right,
then
cool.
you
Like
yeah.
I was there, and it was like, okay. Like I didn't ask. I would never ask, never. And it was just like, okay, I'm part of this. And it was just, I think that's when it was like, okay.
And
Like,
then
it
you ended
was
up
just-
being the only person that was there for all of them, which
No.
is so cool
Oh,
too.
oh yeah. Besides your mom.
Yeah,
'cause I
no, but
think-
my mom missed Bronx. Remember?
Okay.
Yeah, so like you're the only person that was there for
For
all
each
of them.
one, yeah. And I think it was just because I wasn't expecting it, and I think that, like I said, after that's when it changed.
Yeah.
So
Like,
looking back now, present day, right? Because there's still a lot of life left to live.
We could do. Oh, also I would say we could do 3 more episodes.
Yeah, just on
like the
just
past
on
10
that
years.
past
But-
yeah.
No, I know.
Looking
There's a lot.
back, right? We went through your childhood,
Yeah.
teenage. Looking back, any regrets? Because I know we've come on here and I've talked about things that I didn't like, or things that I wouldn't do with my kids, or she talks about things with her family that she went through. I'm sure there's things that you're like, oh, I would do this differently. But looking at how life has turned out, how things have gone, any regrets? Like, would you go back and change anything at any? Let's just start. This is parenthood. Let's keep it there, because obviously
Right.
with your life, you couldn't change who your parents were, the hand you were dealt. But as a parent, is there any regrets, or are you content and happy with how it all turned out?
I am content and happy, and like I said, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm very, very blessed. But I think my number one regret would have been, but I know it would have changed everything, was having the not so good choices in the men that I had chose in my life to be the father of my kids. But it wasn't like I want him to be my kid's dad, just because I know that would have helped a lot of heartache for you and your sister. Just if I would have made better decisions, or not thought of fleshly stuff, and probably that. But at the same time, if I would have changed that, then we wouldn't be where we're at today.
Right.
Because everything that we've gone through, good or bad, even if a lot of stuff, was out of our control, some of it was out of my control, and on that aspect too, I regret that choosing, because then if I would have had a better choice in men, I could have been able to stay home. That was always my desire after my life change, was I wish I would have been able to stay at home with my kids to protect you guys, because I would have been able to protect you, but I wasn't able to do that. I think it would have saved a lot of that. Like, those are my biggest regrets. Like,
Last question.
but then, yeah.
You could talk to your 15-year-old self who just found out that she was pregnant. What would you tell her?
Yeah, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be good. Like your kid's gonna be amazing. And I remember back then, they used to say if you hear a baby crying, I don't know if it's Mexican, what do you call that? Like a little saying. I don't know what
Like
you
an
say.
old
There's
wives'
a saying,
tale?
like a wives' tale. Like,
Yeah.
if you hear a baby crying when you're pregnant, that means like I don't know if it's like your kid's gonna be like something amazing. Like, it's gonna be something that you can't even imagine. And then I remember thinking that, I saying that to my mom, like, oh, your kid's gonna be special. And looking now, I'm like, man, like, just where you're at, like, what the heck, like, maybe that is true what they're saying. It wasn't just and I remember one time too at Mervin's, some like gypsy person wanted to tell my fortune, and I was pregnant with you, and they're like, can I tell you your fortune about your baby? And I was like, nah, I don't believe in that stuff. Like, get away from me. But they're like, you're baby, like, you know, and I was like, oh, get away from me. I don't want you to. And I'm looking, I'm like, oh my goodness, maybe there was some kind of, you know, truth in that, you know, but it just, everything's going to be okay. Like, you know, like just keep on fighting. Keep on fighting.
Yeah. Well, thank you
for
so
coming.
much for sharing your story. And I kind of want to do like a whole.
Yeah, we got to do a part 2.
I just want to do another one with you.
Oh, yeah, no,
you know?
that wasn't even like half of
I know,
anything. It was just
seriously.
kind of like surface
That was
stuff,
like
you
the
know,
surface, you guys. It's crazy.
I'd have
She's
to,
lived
like,
a life.
I probably should write, I don't know, sometimes I thought about maybe writing a book, you
maybe
know,
the youngest grandma of all time. She became a grandma at age 34. Was it 33? Yeah, 33.
I was 33.
That
when I
is
became
crazy.
a grandma
Anyways.
and mommy.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.